What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm the House Hacking Mom, and today I'm going to share with you guys how I do my meal planning. I'm going to show you guys how you can do it physically on paper, how you can do it in your phone, how you can do it weekly or monthly, and then how I do my actual meal planning. So I really hope you guys enjoy. This is going to be all my best tips and tricks for meal planning. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So just as kind of a acknowledgement right off the bat, I think a lot of homemakers want to think there must be some secret out there that everyone who meal plans knows, and I just don't know that secret, and that's why I don't do it, or that's why I don't like it. So meal planning is kind of one of those things that you just have to do a lot of and practice, and you get better at it, more proficient at it. It doesn't take you as much time the more you do it, but when you first start, it is quite a bit of effort, and it's going to feel awkward and weird and forced. And then once you get going doing it several weeks in a row, several months in a row, then it's not nearly as big of a deal, and you actually feel like you have a lot more control over the food that you're eating, and you're gonna find that you're spending a lot less money at the grocery store because you're buying food for particular meals instead of just kind of random things that you feel hungry for that you think you might maybe want to cook at some point. So meal planning really has so many benefits. And also, just as a homemaker and a mother of two young toddlers and knowing a lot of other homemakers, the homemakers who take the time to do a little bit of meal planning. It doesn't have to be a super intense Excel spreadsheet or anything like that, but just a little bit more forethought when it comes to their menu planning and feeding their family. Their productivity is just better, and they're just able to get more done because at 4:30 or 3:30 or even 5:30 in the evening, their brain is not panicked and full of all these, what am I going to make? What am I going to make? What am I going to make? What do we have? It's a lot more calm and peaceful. And so, what you're able to accomplish in the afternoon is a lot more because you're not having to use up your mental energy, just kind of being creative and coming up with stuff on the fly. So I'm a huge fan of meal planning, and there's all different levels of meal planning that you can do. It does not have to be super intense. It can be super chill and relaxed. And that will kind of take you through all your different seasons of life and your family's needs. So with that acknowledgement out of the way, let's look into the actual, hands-on practical tips for meal planning itself. So I'm bringing you over here to my refrigerator because this is where my meal planning starts. Because when it comes to meal planning, it's really hard to just start with cookbooks and just like pick out random things to make that you feel like making. You can do that sometimes, do that a couple days a week if you like. But I find it's easiest to start with what ingredients do I already have, what needs to get used up, and that helps to reduce a lot of waste. So you kind of want to shop your refrigerator before you meal plan to see what needs to get eaten. Now, I'm making this video a little bit out of order. It's Thursday today when I'm shooting it. I actually do my meal planning on Tuesday, shop on Wednesday. So today is not my meal planning day, so my refrigerator is going to be full. Typically before I meal plan, my refrigerator is actually pretty empty, and you guys will have seen that if you've watched any of my grocery shopping haul videos. But just as an example, I thought it'd be helpful to show how you kind of want to go through your refrigerator to make sure you're not wasting anything. So for most of us, you obviously want to make sure you have lots of eggs. Eggs are a wonderful get out of jail free card meal. Add eggs to almost anything and it will complete the meal, even if it feels more like lunch type food. If you add an egg in there, it beefs it up. Eggs and cheese. Add eggs and cheese to things and it makes it feel like a real meal. So I always make sure I have lots and lots of eggs, and then obviously you're going to go through your produce and see what needs to get eaten. Do you have a lot of peppers? What can you do with that? Do you need to make some chili? You need to make some Mexican food? Do you have a lot of greens that need to get used up? Do you need to plan on making some smoothies or salads or quiches or whatever? So just going through your refrigerator before you start meal planning. So before I even sit down with pen and paper, go through my refrigerator and see, what do I have that needs to get used up before it gets wasted and goes bad? And then obviously you'd want to do the same thing with your pantry. Not now, things in the pantry don't tend to go bad very quickly, but onions do eventually go bad. Potatoes do eventually go bad. There are things that you probably keep in your pantry that will eventually go to waste if you don't use them. So it's a good idea to purposely go through those, rotate them, and see what needs to get eaten, this week before it goes bad. And then the last thing I'm going to go through is look at my freezer, because my freezer is where I store pretty much all of my meat that's not being used right now. So once I've kind of figured out what produce and other things need to get eaten up, sometimes occasionally I have a little bit of meat left in the refrigerator from the previous week that obviously needs to get used. But then I go into my freezer and I see what meat can I pull out for next week that will help save me from having to grocery shop for meat, because meat is typically the most expensive things that we buy. So it's helpful to go through your freezer and see what things can you pull from that will help you save money for the coming week. And when you go through your freezer regularly, sometimes you'll find nice little surprises like, oh, I forgot I froze this extra pie dough, or I forgot that I froze, this extra spaghetti sauce, this extra soup meal. I totally forgot I did that. And then often that will just save you an entire meal that you have to plan for that week. So now that we have our actual inventory of what we have on hand, kind of in our brain, maybe you wrote it down. If you have just a lot of food that you need to use up, that's when you want to sit down and actually do your traditional meal planning, menu planning, whatever you want to call it. Now, when I got married, I was gifted this lovely little small notebook. I taped a little envelope to the back right here. You can see where I eventually tore it off because I found I didn't need it anymore. But when I first started meal planning, it was great because I would store all my meal plans in that envelope. I would write my meal plans in either a little note card or just, a little sticky note or something, and I would keep them in that envelope. And then, as I was a new bride, learning to cook, all that sort of stuff, getting used to things, it was great because then I could just pull out a note card and be like, okay, 3 weeks ago, we made these 5 meals and 2 of them were great. So let's go ahead and use those 2 in this week. Or sometimes I would just meal plan straight from a note card that I had made, 2 months ago. So that was really great. I find that now I really like to meal plan digitally. I do all of my meal planning pretty much now on my phone, and I can show you here where I do it. I just do it in the Notes app of my phone. On one note page, I have my running grocery list, my meal plan for the week, and then also my homemaking tasks. So that one page is kind of my homemaking clipboard that I keep in my phone, and that's great because sometimes I'm home when I'm meal planning, but sometimes I'm also just, sitting around somewhere else random and I don't have easy access to something like this, and it works great because we almost always have our phones with us. So I can do it anytime, and it just seems to take a little bit less effort. But meal planning with pen and paper is also really great. So if you are a pen and paper type person, I'd recommend starting there because it might give you a little bit more motivation because you can make it look nice and look pretty, and it can then be something to look forward to maybe a little bit more than if you're just doing it on your phone. And if you do like to have your meal plan kind of out there for everyone to see, including yourself, just to remind yourself, this is a new calendar stick-on thing that I got recently. I could maybe link it below. I bet I could find it in my Amazon orders. But I have started putting my meal plan up here in the notes section. But this does help for you and for your kids, if your kids are old enough to read, to kind of know what's coming down the pipe. And I typically do not meal plan for particular days of the week because I like to have that flexibility. So sometimes I do like to meal plan for specific days, but I often do not. So if we were going to sit down and actually physically meal plan together, the first thing I'm always going to start with for a dinner meal is the protein. What's the protein? What are we eating? Now for us, I would say 70% of the time, 75% of the time, it's chicken. We eat a lot of chicken. If you guys have watched my grocery hauls, that's pretty much what we eat. You can see what we eat because that's what I'm buying. So we eat a lot of chicken legs and chicken thighs. Whole chickens, I used to buy a ton of whole chickens, but actually I would say in the past 3 months or so, whole chickens are actually kind of hard to come by. So I've really been relying on the chicken leg quarters. Those still seem to be in okay supply at the grocery store. So we eat a lot of roast chicken thighs, roast chicken legs, grilled chicken, and then a lot of times I will just roast way more than we need for a particular meal. And then I will take the leftovers, shred it, and use it in something like pasta, for example. Or I had some leftover chicken the other week and I shredded it up and put it on top of pizza for like a barbecue buffalo pizza thing. And then also, of course, soups. With all those chicken bones that we are going through, I make homemade chicken stock, which is super simple. It's a very passive thing to do. You just put the chicken bones, some carrots, celery if you have it, onions, garlic, salt, pepper into your crock pot, fill it with water, let it go for 12 to 24 hours, strain it, and you have the most amazing soup base you've ever had in your entire life. And it will make your soups go from kind of being like a sort of meal to being something everyone actually really looks forward to eating, which is challenging because as a more frugal homemaker that I am, I really want to eat more soup because it's typically cheap. And it uses a lot of the type of ingredients that we wouldn't go through standing on their own very well. Like I can use chicken a whole bunch of ways, but I can't just use dried white beans very many different ways. I suppose you could make like a bean salad, but my little toddlers aren't going to go for that. So if I want them to eat dried white beans, I need to put them in a soup and make the soup super delicious if I'm going to get them to eat it. So for us, most weeks when it comes to dinners, as it is, for example, this week, we are going to have roast chicken 2 nights, and then the sides will be some sort of green vegetables. So I went to the grocery store. I got lots of fresh broccoli, fresh green beans. I also had some frozen peas if for some reason, that's not enough vegetables to carry us through. And then I also will make a side. So if it's kind of been a rough day or the kids have needed a lot of discipline that day, I'm going to be more inclined to make something like macaroni and cheese as the side to kind of end the day on a really nice comfort food note, along with the roasted chicken and the vegetables. Or we make lots of rice. And I have finally learned that when I'm making rice, I just need to make a lot of it. And then I just have in my mind that I can make stir fry any of these coming days with any of the leftover protein that we have. So we also eat a lot of pork loin because pork loin is super, super cheap. We just get the half loins of pork. I can show you a little shot of it right here. You can do all different things with it. You can cut it into chops if you want to. You can stuff them if you want to. We did that the other week with kale and goat cheese. It was super, super good. So you can do a lot of things with a big cut of pork. And if you end up just having too much to go through, you can just cube it and use it in a stir fry. So having a big cooked piece of meat like that in the refrigerator is super helpful for lunches and dinners down the road that week. So we've already got some pork dinners with sides, some chicken dinners with sides, and then for the other meal or two that week, I'm gonna look at some sort of pasta dish, either a pasta carbonara, which is great because you can just use several slices of bacon. It's not exactly a meat-free meal, but it's less meat forward. Meat's not really the star of the show. And then you can put greens in there. You can put spinach or kale if you chop it up really fine, wilt it, and that's a good way to get kids to eat those sorts of greens that they might not be super inclined to eat otherwise. Or spaghetti with meat sauce. We eat a lot of spaghetti with meat sauce. I have a recipe here on my channel if you are in need of a good homemade spaghetti sauce recipe. And at the moment, we're getting pretty far into April. This is kind of the last little smidge of time that I can serve soup regularly. We've been eating soup regularly this fall and winter, which I am very happy about. That was definitely a goal of mine to learn how to cook some really good soups. I have some bone broth in my refrigerator. We're going to be gone actually quite a few days this week, so I didn't need any more meals, but it will be perfectly fine until next week, and that will probably be one of the last soups that I will be regularly making. And then maybe we'll make some tomato soups and stuff like that during the summer. Well, I'm not going to be making the really hearty, this is the main dish soups quite as much now that we're into later spring. And just to touch on breakfast and lunch meal planning, some people don't prefer to meal plan for breakfast and lunches, and I certainly do not do it strictly by any means, but a little bit of forethought goes a long way. So when it comes to lunch meal planning for me, I do make sure that some of the meals I'm going to be making are going to make leftovers. Not every meal that I make is always going to have leftovers. So I need to make sure that some of the meals I'm going to be making are going to have enough leftovers for at least the next day's lunch, because we rely on leftovers a lot in this house. And then I also need to make sure that I have a day when I'm going to be making some bread and that I have stuff for sandwiches, whether that's just plain old grilled cheese or PB&J, or it's going to be a nice lunch meat sandwich. So I like to have the stuff on hand to be able to do that. And then for breakfast, like I said, when we went through the refrigerator, keep lots of eggs on hand because eggs are great. Scrambled eggs are fabulous for toddlers, especially like 18-month-old ones. And they can pick them up really easy with their hands. They tend to like them, and it's a really great way to get protein. We don't really eat cereal for breakfast in this house. We do keep a little bit of dried cereal on hand, which is great for like snacks in the car and things like that. But our breakfasts are typically hot breakfast. So I will make a big batch of just stovetop oatmeal. I will soak them overnight with water and yogurt. That's it. Put a lid on it on the stovetop. Let them get nice and softened. And then in the morning, just heat it up. Add a little bit of cream or butter, a little salt, sugar, maybe a little bit of vanilla, and then just frozen berries over it. The kids love it. They eat huge bowls of oatmeal, and then whatever's left over just goes in the fridge, and then we just eat off of that for the rest of the week. In the winter, I make oatmeal bakes as well. I haven't really made any as the weather's been turning a little bit warmer, but probably when it gets into peach season, I will make a peach version of an oatmeal bake. I do have the oatmeal bake recipe, I believe, on my channel, so if you would like to check that out, that's a good way to try to get kids to eat oatmeal who maybe don't like it the traditional way. So now that you hopefully have some good ideas about how to actually meal plan, now is the time that you need to make your grocery list. I typically meal plan and grocery list on the same day, and for me that's Tuesday. So I've got all the recipes I plan on making fresh in my mind, my inventory of what I have in my refrigerator, pantry, freezer, fresh in my mind. Go ahead and make your grocery list. Now, just one important thing to note, especially right now when you don't always know exactly what's going to be there on the shelves when you get to the grocery store. And I will say that's something that I'm still getting used to being a little bit flexible with your meals and not always having to have that exact particular thing and not letting that stress you out too much, and getting comfortable with making substitutions and just doing the best that you can. So for example, I really wanted to make a whole chicken this week. I had 2 meals kind of planned around having a whole chicken because it makes a lot of meat. And they were all out of whole chickens, all of them. Organic, free range, the conventional ones. There was no whole chicken to be had. So that's all right. I'll just make an extra batch of my regular chicken thighs and legs, and it'll be fine, and no one's even going to notice except for me because I was going to cook it. And my last tip when it comes to meal planning is get really comfortable with rotating your meals. Don't feel like you have to start from scratch, because I certainly do not start from scratch every single week. I look at what we had the previous week and maybe the week before, because once you start eating a lot of the same food frequently, it doesn't have to be the exact same food, but foods that use similar ingredients. So for us, we eat a lot of foods that require chicken, pasta, potatoes, rice, broccoli, green beans, butter, cheese. And those core ingredients give me a lot of flexibility, and I can kind of pull from all different meal plans, and I know that I've mostly got the ingredients to make that stuff. So getting really comfortable with rotating and not feeling like you have to start from scratch every time. And especially don't feel like you have to do it for your family, because usually as the cook, you are the one who is really craving variety, and they would probably be really happy if they just had spaghetti and meatballs every single night forever, and they wouldn't ever notice or complain. There are seasons of life where that's super awesome, and then there's going to be seasons of life where you're going to be eating a lot of spaghetti and a lot of chili and a lot of soup and simple things like that. And actually my final tip is to remind you to look at what is going on with the seasons for your inspiration and creativity. I know that seems like super obvious, but it can be helpful to look at what is actually in season right now, because sometimes we think we know what's in season, but that's not actually the case. So what's in season right now? Early spring, you're thinking your cold weather vegetables like asparagus, broccoli, peas, that sort of stuff, and kind of use that to give you a little bit of inspiration. Eggs are also in season. A lot of people don't know, but eggs do have a season. Chickens lay a lot more eggs in the spring and the summer when the sun is out for a longer period of time. So let eggs be an inspiration to you. How can I use eggs? You can put eggs in all kinds of things. It can even go in pasta sauces like pasta carbonara. So letting the ingredients that are in season kind of inspire your cooking a little bit, and that way you will see some differences in your cooking between spring, summer, winter, fall, instead of the only time you switch of anything is just, randomly adding pumpkin to things in the fall. So it will just help give you a little bit better creativity and intention when you're meal planning without having to stress about it too terribly much. So I really hope this video was helpful for you guys, or at least a little bit inspirational in your meal planning. And if you have any questions or comments, make sure you leave them below. Like this video and subscribe to my channel. I make videos like this every week about frugal living, healthy eating, and minimalist parenting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.